All right. So thank you everybody for joining us for our weekly Monday Zoom and Learn. My name is Tommy Detcher. I'm the area sales manager with California Title Company. And my co-host, where is she? There she is Mary Jane Morris. Mary Jane, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm here. I think everybody knows me. This is like a lunch. We could all have a sandwich here today, hang out. I'm Mary Jane. I'm the VP of Sales with Granite Escrow. I was brought on to bring a new level of service, a broker level of service to the escrow industry with my experience. I'm very excited today to have Jane Borgan from CRMLS. She is a systems expert. You know, I did most of my time in San Diego, and Realist was the, you know, when you clicked on the APN, that's where you went, straight to Realist. And so I was always very comfortable with their products, and so I'm very grateful that they've upgraded, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Jane today. And without further ado, Jane, what you got for us today?
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead, just jump right in there. Let me share my screen. So we've got, of course, Realist Tax on the calendar for today. And let's go here from the dashboard. Now, I know that you're all aware as you go in there, you're searching for property. You can go into Realist Tax through that link within Matrix, but I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go right into Realist Tax. Through that standalone tab there, we have Realist Tax, and the new look of it, they rolled out. It's been probably maybe a couple of years now as far as doing some upgrades to Realist Tax. But I want to start off by pointing out up here in the top left-hand corner, you'll notice that I switched from having multiple counties selected, and I switched that to going to just one county. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to use that newer feature of the sales score now that is within Realist Tax. So if you went in there, guys, and you went over to the right side where it says change county, and you have multiple counties selected, you can go ahead now. Just think about this. Even though I only have Orange County selected, it doesn't mean I can't search in any other county. It just means I selected just that one. I could go ahead and not select any county. But regardless of that, I'm not sure if you guys had counties selected, because that's kind of always the way that you've been trained as you go in there for many years. They always said, with Realist Tax, choose up to 8 counties that you typically search in. And so now with the new sales score, you can only have 1 county selected for that feature to work. And I don't know the reason for that. Honestly, they said it's something that they're working on, but I don't want you to get in there and think, hey, I'm going to use the sales score, but then it jumps up and it says you have multiple counties selected, so you cannot use the sales score. So I want to point that out right away to start with. And like I said, just because I only have Orange County selected, it doesn't mean that I can't search in every county in the state of California, because Realist Tax, of course, provides data for every recorded parcel within the entire state. All right, so I'm going to kind of flow on through, guys. If you have questions, jump on in there. But I just want to start off. I don't know if there's anybody here that's never used Realist Tax, but I think that most agents, they go into Realist Tax, or they call Tommy, but they go into Realist Tax, they plug in a property address, they plug in an owner name, or they plug in an MLS number or an APN for land. They pull up that property profile, they print it out, they run with it. And a lot of times that's all that agents use it for. And honestly, there is so much more to it that you could utilize. So I want to jump in there, and I'm really going to start off kind of basic here on the quick search. I'm going to plug an address in, and I grabbed one ahead of time down in Temecula. There it is right there. And so I'm going to go ahead and search that property. And one thing to point out there is the search that is within Realist Tax, it does not support a street suffix and so on. So less is always going to be better when you're searching within the Realist Tax. And you'll notice that I have a live countdown here as far as 1 match. So let's bring up that property profile. I want to look at just a couple things here. Now, as you go on down, this is actually an active listing. And as we drop on down, you see all of that information that's broken down. And I know you guys know that, of course, you have your assessment and tax there. It's broken down, your special assessments. And I have heard from some agents that there are times when that can be slightly off. And I think Tommy can probably better address that. So Tommy, do you typically say, guys, use this, but always kind of, you know, contact title and find out for sure what those special assessments are, because they may be slightly off within the profile itself?
Every now and then, and trust me when I tell you, they're not big discrepancies. They're usually fairly small discrepancies. We see more of little things, not like a full CFD omitted, right? However, I have seen a full CFD omitted before in the past, where I got a call and they're like, you know, I sold a house, you know, one street over, and it was a much higher tax rate, and I just want to verify. And then when I look it up, it was missing a CFD of about $1,100. But it was a fairly new house, and we find those, you know, quite a bit because, you know, tax records only update once a year, and so, you know, that's usually where we find them, is if something happened within, you know, that first year or what have you. But for the most part, it is fairly accurate. I do get questioned a lot of like, is it possible for them to give us a total? And they finally put it in there, I see, where it says total of special assessments at the bottom there, right?
Yeah.
And that's the first time I've seen that. So
did.
that is definitely a helper. And then the other question I get on Realist quite a bit is if you scroll up just a little bit above assessments there, right there, where it gives us the total tax rate. Whoops.
Right here.
Yeah. So in Realist, down below where it says tax year and it says total tax, and then it says changes and it says percent change. But nowhere in here does it tell you what would the active tax rate be, right? Total tax rate with your basic levy and assessments total together. You know, what's the current, based on current assessed value, what's that current tax rate look like? Is it 1.4? Is it 1.63, et cetera? That is something that I get questioned a lot because, believe it or not, there are a lot of agents that, and I hate to say this, don't know how to calculate the taxes. And the easiest way is if you know the tax rate, you do the simple division, right? And so I get calls a lot when there are quite a few CFDs or Melleroos, et cetera, and it's adding a lot of special assessments, trying to figure out, okay, what's the new tax rate going to be? My system allows me to plug in the sales price, and it'll do the math for you and tell you exactly what the new tax rate's going to be, exactly what the new tax amount's going to be. That would be an awesome feature if Realist adopted it, but that's usually what they're looking for is, hey, what's that new tax rate going to look like?
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was here, and that's just something good to point out. But nonetheless, guys, as you drop on down here, you're going to see every property has that sales score indicator. And so I'll jump in here in a little bit and we'll talk about how we could search an area and then use that sales score to possibly pull those properties that have a very high sales score. And so that sales score is based on CoreLogic data, sales data, and just the valuation of that particular neighborhood. And like this one, it has a moderate, which is 593, but it's an active listing. So I think really kind of taking that sales score with a grain of salt, you're investigating that property a little bit farther. But that is a feature now that you can actually customize and search an entire area. So we'll take a look at that. And then of course, every property has an AVM attached to it. So you have a couple different options as far as finding a value for a property. This has been around for quite some time, that AVM, and then possibly a little bit more accurate is that RVM over in RPR. So I don't know if you all use RPR or not. Tommy, are you familiar with RPR, Realtors Property Resource?
I've seen it only a couple times. I'm not fluent with it, no.
Okay, because there's another area where agents can find that, you know, estimated value, but this is one way here. And then the link over to the listing information. And this is really handy, guys. If you're in there, you're looking at a property and you want to know the history back in Matrix, you see that under the MLS listing number right here is actual hyperlink. So rather than me having to go back to Matrix and research that property, all I have to do is click on that hyperlink, and that's going to open up and give me that entire property history, which typically will go back until about the year around 2000 here in Matrix. So that's a handy tool right there. All right, and then scrolling down, of course, you have all of that profile information. Now, I want to point out to you guys as you go across and you're looking to grab comps, you all know that the comparables here are all recorded parcels. So if there's a property, a lot of times agents will say, I can't find any comps over in Matrix. If you wanted to go ahead and search over in Realist Tax, you're going to pull back all. So regardless if it was sold through the multiple listing service or not, when you go to comparables here, this is going to pull back both. And this is just a quick option for you as far as grabbing comps. And when you're in there, and say as example, I come back and I don't find any comps. It says no comps found. When you're scrolling through each one of these tabs here, you see the option right here for search criteria. And I don't know if you ever really click on all these buttons or not, but I think this is probably one of the handiest. As I'm going through, I have my overall preferences set up for my comparables, but if I don't find any comps, I don't want to have to go out of the profile, go into my settings, and switch up that criteria just to run this report. I can go right here to search criteria. It's that tiny little button. And what it's going to pull me into is saying, hey, here's your preferences for your comps. Do you want to switch these up slightly for this one report? So I always think that's a handy tool that we, you know, when they rolled out the newer version of Realist Tax. And I see at the bottom, I have the option to just simply submit, which is going to do that for this one report only. So when I submit that,
I'm sorry. I think that would be a good tool as well as if it pulled back, like this one pulled back 10, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you went in and said, okay, well, my property, my actual property that I'm trying to find comps for is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That's going to pull the most recent 10 comps. But what if I wanted to go back, like, hey, maybe there's 30 comps in that 1 mile radius, and I wanted to narrow it down just to the exact bedrooms and baths, and I could potentially still give you 10 comps, but they're more related to the size house.
Yeah, absolutely. You could even break it down here as far as, year built, sale price. So there's my overall, and I have those set just to go back for 3 months. But I do think that's handy to have that ability rather than jumping out and coming back in. And I think it's probably a button that gets overlooked because nobody ever hits all the buttons because you just don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, I would highly recommend agents utilize that because, again, as I've seen this before in these comps, if it were a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, some of these comps could be, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2 stories, et cetera. They're just the most recent, and they're plus 10, minus 10 in square footage still. Where if you're trying to find more like-for-like property, there could be, still a solid 10 comps in there or more if you narrow the search down.
Absolutely. And so, keep it in mind too, guys, if you want to jump in there, that's great that it's in that grid format. But if I want to look at that full comp, it's such a tiny little button right here. It says view the detail report. And I think that's probably overlooked. But if I click on that, it's going to open up and give me that full profile. And I can scroll through each one of those comps now. And I could just check or uncheck it right here. Because you always have that option to drop in there, and generate that quick comp report right from here, which would be, I'm sure, if you're in a pinch, but you can generate your comp report right from here. All right. So another tab to point out there, guys, is the neighbors. And I think this is kind of interesting because now since we are able to do open house again, if I've got a just listed or a just sold, and I think, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do some door knocking real quick on the neighbors just right up and down that street, I can go through here and they're all listed out. So there's all the neighbors. And geographically, I have mine set up to pull back those neighbors on exact same street. And there again, I can set my preferences up as to how do I want to pull back the neighbors. And I can go up if I want to change it there again. I see search criteria, I could change that up. And if you're wondering as you go through here, why are some of those properties, why do they have a photo? And some of them just have the silhouette. If there's no history on that property back in CRMLS, you're not going to see a property photo. So that's where you're just seeing that silhouette there. All right. So neighborhood profile. Here's one, guys. If you get somebody who says, hey, we're looking at a particular property, do you have time to just send us over just a quick school report? Doesn't have to be anything huge. You have two options. You can go into Realist Tax, you can search that property, you can drop over here to the neighborhood profile. And first of all, it's going to give you the demographics, which pulls from the 2020 census, but maybe I don't necessarily need that information. There's that second button up there to customize that view. So in that case, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I don't necessarily need the quality of life, the housing population. I can take off some of those sections there, but by default, they are all included. But you'll notice towards the bottom, now I'm going to have school information. So this is pulling from my preferences. Once again, I see schools, and this is set up as to the last time I ran a report. So if I drop in here and I want to change this up and pull back, maybe they're looking at high schools as example, and I've got the local businesses I'm pulling back right around there. I'm going to go up there once again to my search criteria, and I'm going to tell the system, hey, in this case, what I'm looking for as far as schools is right down here, school categories. I want to pull in only the high schools, public and private, and how far out do I want to go? And it's not saying that, you know, if you send this report over, they're going to the school. This is just kind of general idea of what schools are around that property, and then just submit that report. But here again, I can go ahead, I can print out any of these reports. I can also drop down to the bottom left and I can email. But I want you to keep in mind, if you use that option for quick email, you're only emailing out or printing the property details only. But if you say, hey, you know what, I want to go ahead and send out the property detail information. I also wanted to drop in there and email out some comps and also that school report. You would use that feature for customize. Because when you do that, it pops up and says, hey, which one of those tabs do you want to print or email out?
Okay, so we did have one question that just came up in the chat. It says schools. That does not give the assigned school, meaning the assigned school district or the assigned school that that address would belong to, correct?
Right. It's just saying, hey, here are the schools. And I believe there's a disclaimer in there pulling from, I want to think it's greater schools. And you can always put that disclaimer in your note that you're sending over too. You're not saying that they're going to the school. You're giving schools around the area. And this is probably for somebody more that, you know, kind of thinking about a property, looking at a neighborhood, but they're not taking liability for school boundaries in that case.
So while we're on that subject, is there within the MLS, is there a place that you would direct people to pull that data, meaning exact school boundary data?
The exact school boundaries on the map itself? Or saying what school they're...
Like, just when they're going in and putting a new listing in, it's asking them to list the schools and stuff. And sometimes, you know, they may not know exactly. It may fall kind of like in the middle of two high schools. And you don't know which one it actually belongs to. Is there somewhere for them to search to find that data, or is it outside the MLS to find it stuff?
Yeah, it would be outside the MLS. We don't want to take, you know, we don't want to take responsibility for that. Gotcha. And when they enter a listing, we're only asking for the district itself. We're not saying, and most agents, honestly, if I were entering a listing, I would not say, you know, I would not list out the schools, the actual high school or the elementary. I would just put it in the district itself, because what if for some reason that changed? Then now you are responsible, because you said that, you know, it is attached to this school, and that boundary could change. So, I mean, that's just something to think about there. But guys, back to the property details. I just want to point out here, if you drop in here and you're planning to share this profile with someone, most likely you don't necessarily want that sales score attached to it, and you probably don't want the AVM attached to it. Notice up here in the top right, and it's that tiny little button again, it's customize the view. So I'm here on the property details, and I go up here to customize the view. If I'm going to email this out to somebody, I'm probably going to take out the propensity sales score, and I'm going to take out that AVM, that automated value right there. So just make sure when you're sharing something that you're including sections that you want them to see, okay? And that was by customized view right there.
I was going to mention that as a broker and trainer for many years, lots of new agents drop in on me with a listing appointment in 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour out. So besides the documents that we have to get ready, we need some sort of presentation. So I use that customized report. I print it and I pop it in a nice folder for them, and they're on their way with real graphs and real information, and it's very easily read. And for brokers, I find it very easy to get agents quickly on the road with this report.
Yeah, and you know, like Mary Jane said, there's market trends here too, and they've done some work here on their market trends. Previously, it was just like a kind of a static page. I don't think anybody really even paid attention to it. But now it is a little bit more interactive. As you can see, the trends as you go up, and those trends are always going to be based on the zip code of that property, the city, and then the county. So you can see the 3 lines there corresponding with that geographic over on the right side. And I think this is a great option right here, even if you're just looking at it for your own knowledge and really just to kind of know that it is here. So that's one place where you can get some trends and some stats, really. All right. So don't be shy, guys. If you have a question, jump on in there. So I'm going to clear this out, and let's talk for a second about that new feature of the sales score. And so I've got my map kind of situated over here in, looks like Red Hawk area. And you'll notice over on the My Search tab now, there are the ability to utilize those searches that are set up, those default searches for every user. You have owner occupied, foreclosure and distress search, or an address search. So I've created a new one, which is the sales score. And so I dropped in there, the way I created that particular search right there is I go into the My Search tab, and all I have to do is hit create new search. Really easy. So I'm going to go to mine, which is a sales score. And what I did with that, it should open up there. Let's customize my sales score. So you drop in there, and all you have to do is name it. And I just kept it simple. It's my sales score. This is the one I want to use to search a geographic area, because maybe I'm going to pull back properties that have a higher sales score than others do. So you're going to, first of all, as I said, you're going to name it, keep it simple, and then you drop over to find that information, and that's going to be right here under sales information is where I find the sales score. And so that sales score is broken down as far as very high, high, and moderate. And of course, I'm going to search for the properties that have a very high sales score. That's going to be between 831 and 1,000. So geographically, I'm going to search that on the map, but I just went ahead and added in city and zip also. I mean, ultimately, I could just search just by using that sales score. So once I have that set, I'm just going to apply it, and that's already set to go now. If I want to modify it or delete it, I do see that option to delete that search. If I wanted to add in any other fields, I know, keep in mind, you could drop in here and you can say, hey, I want to have a sales score and I want to drop in there and I want to associate it with when was it last listed, or when did they actually close on that property? How long have they lived in that property? So you could add multiple criteria in here, multiple fields, but I'm just really keeping mine simple. Okay, so that's all set, ready to go. So there's my cell score search I've created, cell score, city, zip code. But now what I want to do is I'm going to drop over to the map. So I'm going to put in my cell score right here, is between, and I'm going to put that between 831, which is going to be a very high cell score, up to 1,000. Okay. And geographically, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this screen over and I'm going to focus on the map here. And I'm going to mark off kind of a smaller area. So let's say that I want this area. So there's Red Hawk Parkway. Okay, so I'm going to grab this area right in here. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to use my pencil right up there, my polygon tool, and I'll just mark off this little area right here. Okay, so this is over by the golf course in Red Hawk. Okay, now if you screw up your drawing, I kind of messed mine up.
You can just
I'm
drag
just going
it
to
out.
take it. Yeah, I'll just drag it out. So I don't want you to think, oh, I have to start all over. And if it's touching on any one of these parcels, it's going to include this parcel. So I'm going to go ahead. I can just search that right from here, or I can go ahead, pull my screen back over. And what I can do now is I can just search down here. I have 9 matches just within this small area that have a cell score, a very high cell score, from 831 up to 1,000. And I'll switch
What
this to my
criteria
split
are they
view.
taking into consideration with that sales score?
So there again, they're taking in, I have it written down here, market conditions, the sales data around that particular area, the valuation, and then just a core logic specific data. And that's all the information they're going to give you on that. So, I mean, that's all I can gather out of it. But now I've got those properties, and I know that, you know, like Tommy said, you can get mailing labels from him. But if I want to drop in there, I can create mailing labels, or I can go into that property a little bit farther and investigate that. I could run that report right here. So that's going to take us over, and you're going to see all those properties broken down and where you're finding that cell score. Now, this one on St. Tisbury Street, the cell score should be between 831 and 1,000 as a 859. So they're saying that this property has a likelihood to list within the next 6 months. Okay, so I mean, it's just a thought of a newer tool that you guys could use. And I mean, I don't know about you, Tommy, but typically I'm going to trust data that comes from CoreLogic because they provide data across the nation, you know. So
Logic is known to be one of the most accurate data sources out there for real estate.
Yeah, I agree. So
there was a question in the chat that came across that said, how is the new Zillow brokerage affecting the valuation model? Most clients compare Zillow's estimate to our valuation. And I think that question is basically asking is Realist, when they give you in the profile where they tell you what their estimated price is for that home, and it gives you the price range, right? The AVM. Is Realist taken into consideration anything from Zillow or Zillow's estimates or anything like that? Or they, and I can probably answer this for you, is if I recall, all of Realist data is pulled from CoreLogic, and CoreLogic does not pull data from third-party sources. They only pull their own data.
Right. You got that right. Exactly, Tommy. So they're only pulling from, true MLS data. They're pulling from, you know, like we say, valuations in that neighborhood, CoreLogic data. They don't base anything on Zillow. And I think that's, consumers always fall back on Zillow. And we all know that Zillow is, you know, the Zestimate. I mean, you can do a study as to how accurate is the Zestimate. And I mean, it's never as accurate as something that you're going to find that pulls from the true data itself. So,
well, and they give you the fine print at the bottom of Zillow's site in the Zestimate tab that tells you, you know, the percentage of off it is. And it is pretty great. But
Right.
CoreLogic is pulling actual data, where Zillow is pulling radiuses of an area that can easily be skewed if, and I'll use this as a perfect example, in Temecula, Paloma del Sol butts up right against Santiago Estates. You have only about, $1.5 million difference in price of that home, right? But if they pull a 1 mile radius, it's going to be skewed versus if they just looked at true data within the communities, where CoreLogic goes in and looks at closed data, actual listing data, and pending data, and then comes up with their estimates based on that versus just doing a geographical radius.
Right.
And they're more looking at, their data more looks at like for like versus just a search, right? So I personally would bank on CoreLogic's data or Realist's data over Zillow's estimate every day and twice on Tuesday.
Yeah, and yep, twice on Wednesday too. Absolutely. So, and then kind of another cool feature that I like that you guys probably haven't even noticed here in Realist Tax is if I want to drop in there and go to this card view, which is right here on the right, and it's a tiny little button. Let me go to my list view. It's right here, my list view. I switched it over to my card view. And I love this feature because within that card view, and let's say that these are those properties that we brought up that said, hey, they have that very high sales score. I want to save these properties for later. So what I can do with that is I can drop in there and I can just mark this little star right here. And this is the only place you're going to find this option within that card view. And I can say these properties right here, I'm going to save these for later because I'm going to come back to them and take a look. So I drop in here, I check a few of these with a star, and now those have been added up here to my favorite properties, and I can come back and preview those later. But that's only found there in that card view on the right, and I can go back to my list view right there. So you're kind of navigating through your split view. I can focus truly on the map itself or go back to my split view there. All right.
There was a question that came in. It says, can the sales score be used for commercial properties such as 5+ units?
I've never actually run that, run something like that. I mean, if you have an address, we could look it up real quick if you wanted to.
Brenda, if you have an address, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll let Jane know if you have one.
Yep, if you have an address, let's look, and we can just answer that. I haven't tested that, but that's a good question.
Jane, do you know if Paragon in San Diego is still using Realist?
You know what? They use a different tool down there, and off the top of my head, I can't think what's within their Paragon system. So if they're using Paragon, they have I think it's called CR Tax, or I'm not certain, but I mean, I'm sure it has a lot of the same functionality, MJ, as Realist does.
I was grateful to be in a community that had continued, however, because I'd spent so much time trusting Realist and knowing what they could do and appreciating their graphics and the quick way that I could get younger agents or somebody who's got a quick appointment on the road.
Yeah, but they have something that's pretty similar down there.
Okay, so let's try that real quick while we're here. Dawn did give us an address.
Okay, so let me clear this out. Let's clear this.
It is in Pasadena, so I don't know if you need to change your county.
No, that's fine. I can even if I only have one county, I can search across California. Yeah.
742 Earlham, EARLHAM Street.
And that's in Pasadena?
Pasadena, 91101.
Okay, let's try this. Earlham. I didn't spell that right.
HAM.
HAM.
EARLHAM.
There we go. Earlham. So let's see, one match. There we go, right there. See if there's a sales score attached to it.
It's a 4 unit, but you know,
Yep, there is a sales score. It's a moderate. It's at a 605.
okay.
Yep, there you go. So that answers that. Very cool. So I would imagine across the board then it has to any profile you bring up, it has that sales score attached.
Can we try one last one?
Sure, you betcha.
It's
Go ahead.
it's 8 units, so this will tell us that one. That it's 33056.
Oops, sorry, hold on, Tommy. 33056.
056 Adelpha, ADELFA, and that's street, and that's in Lake Elsinore, 92530.
Adelpha.
Yep.
You say FA?
Yeah, ADELFA. Yep.
Lake Elsinore.
Yep.
One match. Let's see. This is good to know. So that one, nope, so it doesn't have a sales score attached to that.
So it looks like it's potentially 1 to 4.
Yep, I would
This is
imagine
an 8
so.
unit.
Yep.
Okay.
So 4 or less. Yep. Yep, there you go. So I think one place you could probably find like at least you could find an automated value or something to think about too in creating a great report for those, considered commercial properties if it's 4 or more units would be RPR. So just kind of keep RPR stuck in the back of your head because that really is, it's one of my favorite programs. It just has so much to offer.
And we had a couple that came on late. So
Mm-hmm.
RPR stands for?
It stands for Realtors Property Resource, and it's here on your dashboard. It's your tool put out by National Association of Realtors, and it has data from across the nation.
Perfect.
So I think it's handy, like if you needed comps in another state, you could run those comps. Okay, so let's do this, guys. Let's drop into the My Search, and let's just kind of take a look at searching for those distressed properties. So Tommy and I kind of chatted about this ahead of time, and basically, thinking about running that initial search here and grabbing some properties that are in pre-foreclosure, and then kind of, chatting with Tommy and saying, hey, let's investigate this property a little bit farther before I kind of touch base with these folks and see if it is possible for a short sale. So that's kind of where you might start off here and that My Search tab, guys, there's already a search that's set up for you, and that's going to be found under that drop down, under that foreclosure and distress search. Okay, so you don't have to do anything as far as getting it set up. It's already done for you. And I'm only going to grab 3 fields here. So I'm going to grab the foreclosure stage right there, select from list, and we're going to look at pre-foreclosures. So one value is selected, and then I'm going to drop on down, and I'm going to close up that foreclosure recording date. And tell me, what do you think? Go back? Should we just stick with, make it simple, just go back 3 months, 2 months? What do you think?
I mean, it really doesn't matter with the situation we're in right now. You're not going to have any new ones. They're going to be the ones that are already in play from a year ago.
Okay, so let's just kind of run, we'll run 3 months.
3 months.
How's that sound? Okay, and then let's do cities. I'm going to start off with Temecula, and we'll see there. So I've got, I ran this before we started. I think there were 9 here, 9 matches for the city of Temecula. But if I want to add one more city, I can go ahead. I could add multiple cities in here. We'll run Marietta. And I came up with a few more there. So when we search that, I just want you guys to be aware that when you're looking at those reports, and I'm just going to drop down here to my reports on the bottom right, you're always going to have that extra tab that adds over when you're running those distressed properties. And it's going to be that public information on that pre-foreclosure. So this one, actually, the filing date was 3/31.
Is that document number hyperlinked? Is that why it's blue?
Yeah, it's a hyperlink.
Perfect.
So that take you over to that. Let's just see. Oh no, they want you to pay for it. $5.
Okay. Well,
but it gives you all the
they can
public
get it from me.
information. Yeah, they can get it from you, but I mean, here's a good way for them to start investigating before you just, hey, Tommy, give me some pre-foreclosures. You could start your search here and then touch base with Tommy and say, hey, here's the properties I came up with. Tell me some more about them. Research them a little bit farther.
Or just ask me for, hey, can you get me this document number? It's Riverside County, document number is, and I can do that.
But do you think that's a good option for them to kind of start off
Absolutely
looking here and then reach out to you that way? I mean, that's what makes sense to me, rather than just, or do you just prefer that they go directly to you on that?
No, I mean, I always prefer somebody to start their own research because it puts them down the path of where they want to be. But if they don't know how to start their own research, then obviously I help them do that.
Right.
But yeah,
So
I mean, this is a great tool to very quickly pull up that data. And, if we're searching pre-foreclosure, it means we're in notice of default stage. So, all these have been issued a notice of default. They haven't gone past that yet. So, I think the biggest thing is being able to look at, one, the dates in which it went notice of default and where it's at in that stage, or when it's due to move to the next stage, et cetera. More than likely,
and those dates
these
are
were a
all
while
right here.
back. They just keep getting pushed, but
they just keep getting pushed to,
right.
So,
we have
and eventually they'll
notice a default back in April. But it probably was pushed from prior to that.
So, and eventually though, that's all going to come back, right? I mean, it's just a matter of time before these are all, before properties the banks are able to actually start.
Well, these are already in motion. So, as soon as the CARES Act is lifted, these will be the first that are going to get processed, right? We have a whole bunch that are in the system already trying to be processed that from before that, for whatever reason, keep getting prolonged, et cetera, et cetera. They say if it was before the CARES Act that, those can proceed, but more than likely they probably got postponed. And so, these will be the first ones to get processed once CARES Act is lifted.
Right. All right. So last thing to mention here, guys, I'm going to drop you up to the settings of Realist Tax. And it's just important anytime you have that new software, or maybe you've not even gone into the settings of this program yet, they're up in the very top on that little gear icon. And you want to drop in here and take a look at all your settings. Notice that mailing labels, if you do grab your own mailing labels from here, they are scrubbed. So they're not going to be, folks are not going to be coming up that are on the do not mail list. But here's really the main reason I wanted to go in here was for all of your reports. How do you want your preferences set up overall? And that would kind of give you a good start. So when you search for comps, how do you have your preferences set up? And then you can always go in and adjust that criteria. And then if you're emailing from Realist Tax, just make sure you have your email signature all set, because it does not pull over from the matrix from CRMLS.
Nice.
All right.
Go back to that screen real quick.
Sure, you betcha. There you go.
I know I'm going to get this asked. So are they only allowed to put text in there, or can they actually paste the picture of their signature bar or whatever it is?
Yeah, there's no option for that.
Text.
I don't think it's just going to be HTML. So
gotcha.
Yeah, there's no feature for that. Let's see here. And then to mention too, Tommy and I were talking ahead of time, guys. If it's the weekend and Realist Tax, maybe you jump into the desktop and you don't see anything going on with Realist Tax here. I just want you to remember that the MLS Touch app, you have the property profile on every recorded parcel now. So it's not only the parcels that are listed in the MLS, but every recorded parcel has the property profile attached to it if you're using the MLS Touch app. So that's something to kind of tuck in the back of your mind.
Can you hit on that RPR real quick?
Yeah, let me open it and see.
Since it came up 3 times today, we might as well just hit on it real quick.
Maybe next time we get to meet, we could talk about RPR. But it's a great tool. Here's a great example. So let's say I drop in there and I'm looking for sellers, right? And I think, you know what? I want to target a specific area, and let me target those folks that have lived there, let's say 15 or more years, because maybe they're getting ready to downsize, kids have all moved out, whatever. So I drop right down here, it says prospect for clients. This is a great example of this. Prospect for clients. I click on it, it says, okay, do you need any help? Yeah, I do. I'm looking for sellers, okay? Walks you right through it. And then it's gonna say, all right, start up here, click on research. So I'm gonna drop in there and I'm gonna say, I'll do a map search and I'm gonna drill down to a specific area. So I'm gonna use East Lake Village for mine because I've already been running this earlier. So I'm gonna say East Lake Village in Yorba Linda, and it's gonna map that out for me. And then what I did was I said, okay, I wanna pull back the public records. And what I'm gonna do is go over to filters and I'm gonna say, let me apply the filters of, I'm looking for single family. And I'm also looking for those folks. I'm excluding all pre-foreclosures and so forth. I don't want that. But I'm looking for those folks that owner occupied, that have lived there 15 to 20 years. And I'm gonna update that search and I'm gonna pull back those properties because now what I wanna do is go ahead and create a list of those properties. I can create mailing labels from here. I can reach out to those folks. They've lived there X number of years. I can go in, I can look at each one of those properties. But this would be a great example of reaching out to folks that have lived there because I've got all that data right there. They've lived there at least 15 years. And like I said, maybe they're getting ready to move on, downsize, whatever. So I could drop in here, investigate the properties. I can create mailing labels from here. You can create CMAs. This is a great place if you have a commercial property and you want to do some comps here. This would be a great option. So it's not only residential, but it's also commercial. So, I mean, this is a huge program. There's a lot to it. And if you've never used it before, I mean, it's a great option for running any of your reports. You've got all different reports here, flyers. I know appraisers use this also because they have more of a valuation workbook that's geared towards appraisers. You can grab school reports from here. I can create market activity reports. There's a wealth of information here, and every single property has an RVM attached to it. Let me pull up the property right here. So that one's actually for rent. Let's pull this one up. So we talked about the AVM over in Realist tax, and the tool you have here in RPR, and this is a tool put out by National Association of Realtors. This has an RVM attached to it, which according to the folks at NAR is more accurate than your AVM because the RVM, they're very particular on going only out that 1 mile range and pulling in those like properties. So this is another tool for gathering information on the value of the property. You can see the list price on this one is pretty close to the RVM on the property. Okay, so it's right there, the RVM. But we should, get something on the calendar if you guys are interested in looking a little bit closer at RPR. We could take a look at that maybe in a couple months or next month or whatever you guys have open. What do y'all think? Does anybody use RPR? I'm just curious. Anybody?
Nobody, huh?
Nobody? You guys, nobody
Brenda,
uses RPR.
Brenda says she does.
I do.
Really? I just really, I feel like if you're not using it, I just feel like you're missing out because, I mean, I don't know what you're using for doing your CMAs, guys, but I've had agents say, hey, you know what? I switched over to use the comparative market analysis in RPR, and they were so impressed with that report that I created that I got the listing. I mean, there's a lot of data here. There's just a lot of tools. So
I say
let me know.
Go ahead and lock you down to come back next month to cover this.
Yep, you bet. We'll, Mary Jane and I will touch base.
Perfect. Brenda says she's been using it for comps in PA, in Pennsylvania for finding distressed commercial properties.
There you go. Awesome.
Oh.
Go, Brenda. Good job. All right. Anything else, guys?
I'm going to go ahead and open it up to where people can unmute themselves, which they should be able to now. And if
Shot you an email to get a date for that RPR class, so.
if anyone has questions, they can feel free to unmute themselves and ask Jane anything that you may want to ask. And if it doesn't pertain, 100% to Realist, that's fine as well. She's a book of knowledge when it comes to all of the resources that are available to you guys in the CRMLS.
Ask away, guys.
Hi, Jane. This is Daryl. I'm looking at the Realist map. Do you know where the data is pulled from that? Is that from Google Maps?
So
It is
what
Google Maps.
data? Yeah,
It is Google Maps in the bottom left-hand corner of the map there.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there any thought process into linking that with the GIS system?
that would be nice. I mean, but I haven't heard anything on that. I don't know. That's maybe something that's coming. It's just Realist tax is usually a little slow on things like that, but maybe eventually.
Yeah, because just my concern.
Keep in mind, guys, all these tools are not, tools specifically built for the CRMLS. These are tools that were built where the CRMLS partnered with them for you guys to, include that within your dues or to get you a substantial discount, et cetera. So, a lot of times we think, why couldn't they have done this better? Or why couldn't they have done this better when it links up to, say, MLS data, et cetera? Keep in mind, these are third-party companies. They're not part of the MLS. So I think they've done a pretty good job linking a lot of the tools by pulling from the MLS. But keep in mind, these are third party.
Yeah.
There again, this is
I'm sorry. Yeah, then that's great. I just, my only concern is that we do a lot of land, and probably a few other brokers on here to do a lot of land. And Tommy, if you minus out the system, if you just have a few minutes and go to a hybrid view, you can see that a lot of the aerials don't match up with the lot lines. Right,
because it's an overlay. It's an overlay that they use over Google Maps.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my overlay in my Title Advantage site as well. When you look at lot lines, because we have to use a map source and we use Google Maps as well. The lot lines are always slightly off. They're there as a guide. They're not there as for you to be able to go out there and map out your lot lines, right?
Right.
I've yet to come across a system that is going to give you 100% accurate lot lines, mainly because County Records doesn't have a system that you can access that has it. And so, the lot lines are there as a guide so that you can kind of see, okay, this parcel is shaped this way, et cetera. But you're not going to find accurate lot line data on an overlay map.
So and I always preface that with a disclaimer when I send out an RPR or something to my or Realist tax report to the clients, because they're pulling up the maps, and 60% of the time they're going out there trying to walk the properties without us. So
it's going to give you a guide to know, like, hey, this one stops, right after this, et cetera, or this one is pie shaped, or the corner of this one is cut off, et cetera. It's going to give you a guide, right, for that lot line. It's not there to be able to map out exactly, stake out your corners of where your lot line is going to be. I mean, you're going to need a surveyor for that that's going to be able to pinpoint where a starting point is and give you accurate measures.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Betcha.
I posted in the chat the updated brochure with the updates. There's a brochure that I attached to the chat that has the full color brochure of the Realist updates.
Nice.
So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to ask or put them in the chat. Mary Jane and I always stay on until the last two, and I'm sure Jane would be okay staying for a couple minutes. So if you have one-off questions or what have you, you can, ask those, etc. But Jane, we would like to obviously thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit with us again. It's always wonderful for you to go over these resources that the agents have available to them, because again, like I said, I know most everybody on here is using Realist, but I don't think they're using it to the extent of what you showed us today, right?
Yep.
And so greatly appreciated kind of dropping your knowledge on what is there for them and how they can use it, etc. We look forward to having you back on in a month or so to go over, is it RPR, right?
Yes.
And and that will be, I think that'll be just as knowledgeable for them as well. So with that said, we'll go ahead and end today's session. I say thank you for everybody joining us. Feel free, anybody, stay on, and we'll continue to have some dialogue and walk you through anything that you need. Thank you again, Jane.
Oh, you're welcome.